Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying an old argument with a family member? Maybe it was something small, a comment taken the wrong way, a misunderstanding left to linger, but somehow, it cuts deeper now than it used to. The silence that follows, the distance that grows between people who once shared the same dinner table, it just feels heavier. If you've felt that kind of ache in your heart, you're not alone. And you're certainly not weak or overly sensitive. There's something about family, especially later in life, that touches a place inside us that no one else can reach. As we get older, our priorities shift. We think more about connection, meaning, legacy, what really matters. And because of that, when a relationship with a child, sibling, or even an old friend becomes strained, the pain doesn't just sit on the surface. It settles deep in our bones. That's why today, I want to gently talk about something we all face but rarely feel comfortable saying out loud: why family conflicts seem to hurt so much more after 65, and how, even now, healing is possible. We'll explore 5 key reasons these emotional wounds can feel more intense with age, and more importantly, what you can do to find peace, restore connection, and move forward, whether or not the other person is willing to meet you halfway. Because the truth is, healing doesn't always begin with them. Sometimes, it begins quietly, within ourselves. And if you appreciate conversations like this, about emotional health, family, forgiveness, and living meaningfully after 60, I would be so grateful if you could give this video a like, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel. I'm on a journey to reach 1,000 subscribers so I can continue sharing heartfelt content for folks just like you. Your support truly helps this small but growing community stay alive and well. So, let's begin with one of the most tender truths that's often hard to admit: why, after all these years, old arguments still have the power to bring us to tears. One of the first reasons family conflicts feel more painful after 65 is simply this: we have fewer distractions. Earlier in life, we're often so busy, raising kids, working jobs, juggling responsibilities, that emotional pain sometimes gets swept aside. We tell ourselves we'll deal with it later. But now, with a little more quiet, a little more time to think and reflect, those unresolved tensions bubble back up. They don't go away just because the years pass. In fact, with space to breathe, they often rise to the surface more strongly than ever. Maybe it's a disagreement with your daughter that started years ago over something small, but neither of you ever really talked it through. Or maybe it's a brother who stopped calling after a family event didn't go the way you both expected. Now, the silence stretches out for months, then years. When our daily life slows down, the ache of that missing relationship becomes louder. That's not weakness. That's the wisdom of your heart reminding you of what still matters. And that brings us to something closely connected: the deeper awareness of time. When we reach our 60s and beyond, we don't have the illusion that we'll live forever. We know, in a quiet and respectful way, that time is precious. And that knowledge makes every lost moment, every fractured connection, feel more urgent to repair. You might find yourself thinking, how many more holidays do I really have left with my family? Or, if I left this earth tomorrow, would I be at peace with how we left things? These are not morbid thoughts, they're deeply human ones. They're part of the natural reflection that comes with age and wisdom. But they also stir a longing in the soul to make things right, to close the distance, to say the things we've been carrying for far too long. Of course, wanting peace doesn't mean it's easy to get there. Sometimes, the hurt runs deep. Maybe your child made choices you didn't agree with, and it created a wall between you. Maybe your sibling still sees you through the lens of childhood roles you've long outgrown. Family dynamics can be tricky like that. But the longer we carry these unresolved feelings, the heavier they become. So what can we do? How do we begin to heal, even when the other person doesn't seem ready, or willing, to come to the table? One of the most powerful things you can do is give yourself permission to feel. That may sound simple, but it's often overlooked. Sometimes we carry guilt or shame for feeling hurt by our own family. We tell ourselves to get over it, or that it's too late now. But pushing those feelings down doesn't heal them. It only buries them deeper. Try this the next time those old emotions come up. Find a quiet space, sit comfortably, and allow yourself to name the feeling. Not the story, not the details of the argument, but the feeling. I feel sadness. I feel abandoned. I feel misunderstood. Say it gently, like you're speaking to a younger version of yourself. Because in a way, you are. So much of the pain we feel in later years traces back to wounds we've carried for decades, often without knowing it. Naming the feeling is the first step in honoring it. You might also find comfort in writing a letter, one you don't have to send. Pour out everything you've wanted to say. All the hurt, all the questions, all the hopes. Let it flow without judgment. Sometimes, healing doesn't begin with another person. It begins with being honest with yourself. Now, this next part may feel hard, but stay with me. Another reason family conflicts hurt more after 65 is because the people we once leaned on for support may no longer be here. When your own parents were alive, you might have had someone to talk to, someone who could help you understand the family dynamics or offer a gentle perspective. But now, it's just you, holding the threads together. That can feel lonely. That can feel like too much. But here's the good news, while we may have fewer people around, we often have more strength than we give ourselves credit for. You've lived through more than most people could imagine. You've weathered storms and celebrated joys. You've earned every silver strand in your hair. And that means you have the resilience, and the right, to choose peace. To choose healing, even if the other person never apologizes. Even if they never come around. It's not about pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about not letting it control you anymore. It's about saying, yes, this hurt me. But I'm ready to put this stone down. I'm ready to live lighter. Let's keep walking this gentle path together. There's a quiet kind of bravery that comes with choosing peace. Especially when it comes to family. Because the truth is, no one can push our buttons quite like the people who've known us the longest. They know our stories. They know where we come from. And sometimes, that familiarity brings out the best, or the worst in us. One of the more unexpected reasons family conflicts hurt more as we age is that our identities become more closely tied to our roles. You see, when you're younger, you're juggling so many hats: employee, parent, neighbor, student of life. But as the years pass and some of those roles fade or shift, the ones that remain, mother, father, grandparent, sibling, begin to carry more emotional weight. And when one of those relationships becomes strained or broken, it can feel like a part of you is broken, too. Maybe your adult son has pulled away and rarely returns your calls, or perhaps a daughter-in-law has made you feel like a stranger in your own family. When that happens, it doesn't just feel like a relationship is suffering, it can feel like your place in the family is uncertain. That can create a deep ache, one that sits silently behind a smile at holiday dinners or during brief phone calls that leave more unsaid than spoken. In those moments, it's easy to ask, what did I do wrong? And while it's healthy to reflect, it's also important to remember that not all conflict stems from failure. Sometimes people change. Sometimes pain is passed from one generation to the next like an invisible thread. And sometimes, even love gets tangled in pride, misunderstanding, or unspoken fear. So what do we do when we start to question who we are in our own family? Start by reminding yourself of who you've always been. Your identity is not only shaped by how others see you, it's grounded in the love, effort, and intention you've carried throughout your life. Take time to reconnect with that part of yourself. If you were a devoted parent, remember the bedtime stories, the home-cooked meals, the way you showed up even when you were tired. If you've been a loyal sibling, recall the laughter shared in childhood, the support given when it wasn't always returned. These moments matter. They still live in the hearts of those you love, even if they've forgotten how to say it. And sometimes, that remembering leads us to another difficult truth: not all family relationships are safe to return to. It's a hard pill to swallow, especially when we've been raised to believe that family is everything. But sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones who wound us the most. Maybe your brother has always belittled you, or your cousin spreads gossip that causes deep embarrassment. At this stage in life, you deserve peace, not constant hurt in the name of loyalty. So here's something to hold close: boundaries are not a betrayal. They are an act of self-respect. If a family relationship consistently leaves you drained, anxious, or hurt, it is okay to step back. It is okay to say, "I love you, but I need space to protect my own well-being." And setting that boundary doesn't mean slamming the door. Sometimes it simply means changing how often you engage, or choosing not to respond to every provocation. It means giving yourself permission to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. But here's the gentle twist to all of this: sometimes, when we step back from the chaos, we find room to breathe. And in that quiet space, something unexpected can happen: clarity. You may begin to see your loved one not just as the person who hurt you, but as a human being carrying their own wounds. Maybe your daughter lashes out because she's overwhelmed and feels unseen. Maybe your sister is cold because she's carrying old jealousy or grief she never processed. This doesn't excuse the hurt they've caused, but it does give you a new lens to understand it. And from that place of understanding, you might find your next step: compassion. Now, compassion is not the same as forgetting. It doesn't mean you pretend the pain never happened. But it does mean choosing to see beyond the conflict and acknowledging the shared human experience underneath. It's saying, "I may not agree with what you did, but I can recognize that you're also hurting in your own way." You can express compassion through a gentle message, a holiday card, a short phone call with no expectations. Or you can offer it silently, in your own prayers or meditations. Sometimes the most powerful healing doesn't come from fixing the relationship, it comes from softening the way it lives inside you. And while we're speaking of healing, I want to pause here and tell you something you might need to hear: it's not too late. It's not too late to say what's in your heart. To write that letter. To make that phone call. Or, if it's too unsafe to reopen the door, it's not too late to release the weight you've been carrying all these years. There's a kind of freedom that comes when we stop waiting for others to change and start offering ourselves the grace we've always deserved. One small but meaningful practice I often suggest to people in your stage of life is something I call emotional housekeeping. Set aside just 15 minutes a week, light a candle, sit by the window, or take a walk with your thoughts. Ask yourself gently, what emotion am I still holding for my family that I no longer want to carry? Don't judge it. Don't fix it. Just notice it. Over time, naming those feelings and setting them down, bit by bit, can create room in your heart for peace to return. And if you're someone who believes in faith or spiritual practices, lean into them now. Whether it's prayer, meditation, scripture, or simply sitting with nature, these moments remind us that we are part of something larger, that no conflict, no matter how painful, defines the whole of our life. Healing family pain after 65 isn't about rewriting the past. It's about reclaiming your present. It's about finding the courage to forgive where you can, and the strength to release what you can't. It's about choosing, one quiet moment at a time, to stop living in the shadows of what went wrong, and start walking toward what still feels right. Let's keep moving forward with kindness, one step at a time. One of the most surprising things about getting older is how emotions seem to land a little deeper. You might find yourself crying during a commercial or feeling heartache from a conversation that would have rolled off your back years ago. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the wisdom that comes from a life fully lived, from a heart that's loved deeply, lost, forgiven, and kept going. And maybe that's why, when family conflict arises later in life, it doesn't just feel like a disagreement, it feels like grief. You may grieve what used to be. Sunday dinners filled with laughter. Road trips, phone calls, birthdays where everyone showed up on time. You may grieve what never was, the apology that never came, the hug that was never offered, the bond you hoped would grow stronger with time but somehow slipped further away. This grief doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes, it arrives as silence, or numbness, or a quiet sense of being misunderstood by the very people you thought would know you best. If you felt that grief, even in its softest form, I want you to hear this: it's okay to mourn something that still exists. Sometimes a relationship isn't lost, but it's changed so much that we don't recognize it anymore. And that, too, deserves space to be felt. Because ignoring those feelings doesn't make them go away, it just makes them harder to carry. Now, here's where the shift happens. Because just like grief, healing is something we can choose to invite in. Not overnight. Not all at once. But slowly. With gentle steps. And one of those steps begins with understanding this next reason why family conflict hurts more after 65, our circle of emotional support often gets smaller. Think back 20, 30, even 40 years ago. You might have had a wide network: co-workers, friends from your children's school, neighbors who stopped by for coffee. But over time, people move away. Some pass on. Some relationships fade for reasons you can't even name. Suddenly, family feels like the only anchor you have left. And when that anchor feels unstable or distant, it can trigger a deep sense of loneliness. That's why emotional connection becomes even more vital as we age, not just with family, but with anyone who fills your soul with warmth and understanding. This is where you take back a little control. You get to build a new circle, even now. You can start small. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or joining a book club, or even attending a local community group where people gather to share stories, music, or tea. Wherever there's kindness, there's potential for new connection. Sometimes the heart simply needs to be seen. And if it can't be seen by your children or siblings in the way you wish, that doesn't mean it can't be seen at all. You are still worthy of love, friendship, and being known, not just for who you were, but for who you still are today. And here's the final piece, perhaps the most empowering one of all. As we move into this season of life, we're given a rare opportunity, something that younger generations often miss in the rush of work, deadlines, and distractions. We are given the gift of reflection. That reflection lets you ask powerful questions. Who am I, really? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? What stories do I want to share? What kind of peace can I make, not just with others, but within myself? Because the truth is, the deepest healing doesn't always come from reconciliation. Sometimes it comes from redefining what healing even means. Maybe your son isn't ready to talk, and maybe your brother still sees you through old resentments. But you? You get to choose how you carry those relationships in your heart. You can choose to forgive, even if they never say sorry. You can choose to release the blame, not for their sake, but for yours. You can choose to hold on to the parts of those relationships that still bring you joy, even if the rest must fall away. And when you do, something shifts. The heart softens. The breath deepens. You begin to see your own strength, not as someone who's been broken by conflict, but as someone who's risen with grace in spite of it. One small exercise that helps many people I work with is writing a letter of release. Not to send. Just to write. Sit down with a pen, and write a letter to the person you've had conflict with. Say everything. The anger. The sadness. The hopes. The disappointments. Let it all pour out. Then, when you're ready, end the letter with what you choose to release. And I mean it, release it. Burn the letter if that feels right. Or tuck it away with a prayer. It's not about getting an answer from them. It's about hearing your own truth, and setting it free. Because healing is not a finish line. It's a rhythm. Some days, you may feel lighter. Other days, an old memory might bring the ache right back. That's okay. Healing doesn't mean you'll never feel pain again. It means the pain no longer controls how you live. And you? You still have so much life left to live. So make that phone call, if your heart is ready. Or take that walk under the open sky and let the sun warm your spirit. Plant flowers. Bake your favorite childhood dessert. Tell your story to someone who will listen. Laugh when you can. Cry when you must. But always, always, come back to yourself. You are not just the sum of your relationships. You are a full, worthy human being who deserves peace, no matter what others choose. And if you're feeling alone in this moment, I want you to know that this space we've created here, right now, it's real. You are heard. You are valued. And you are not alone. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you experienced something like this? How have you coped or grown through it? When we share, we create community. And this channel, this little corner of the internet, is here for that. It's here for you. If this video brought you even a little comfort, please consider giving it a like, sharing it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribing to the channel. I'm on a gentle mission to reach 1,000 subscribers, so I can keep creating content that nourishes the soul, especially for those of us navigating life after 60. You've come so far. And there's still so much beauty ahead. Healing doesn't mean going back to who you were, it means growing into who you were always meant to become. And from where I'm standing, that version of you is brave, compassionate, and full of quiet strength. Here's to living with an open heart. Here's to healing, even if it's slow. And here's to peace, the kind that starts within and gently touches everything around us. You're not too old to change. You're not too late to love. You're exactly where you're meant to be.